This is Chapter 1, Self-Test 4, Adding and Subtracting Fractions. So we're going to start with number 1. The key to adding and subtracting fractions is repetition. There's a couple down here that don't have the common denominator, so we'll go over that. I'm assuming everybody knows the top number is the numerator and the bottom is the denominator. So what we have is 3/7 plus, trying to focus on my pen, 2/7. As long as the denominator is the same, you just add straight across. So this is 5/7. Anytime after you add or subtract, you want to make sure you ask yourself, is this the lowest that this number can be? So I always look to see, is this divisible, is this odd or even? If it's even, you know 2 goes into it. If it's odd, it's either a 3 or a 5 that's going to be divided into it, or a multiple of 3 or 5, like 15, 12, something like that. And I know 12 is not a multiple of 5. 3 times 4 is, so it's a multiple of 3. Anyway, so the only thing that goes into 5 is 5, and the only thing that goes into 7 is 1. The other way to check that if you're unsure is that you break down what times what equals 5. Well, 5 times 1 equals 5, and 1 times 5, which is the same as this, so that's it. And 7 times 1. Can't do 7 times 2, can't do 7 times 3, so this is in its lowest form. That was number 1. Number 2, 3/5 plus 1/5. Do they have the same common denominator? Yes. So we're just going to add straight across. This is 4/5. Then we're going to ask, is this an even number? Yes. Is this an even number? No. This cannot be divided by the same numbers that this can. So again, you can break it down and say 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. And the 5 is 5 times 1. So there's no number common with these. Obviously, 1 does not count because we wouldn't be able to reduce that. So 4/5 is the lowest. Number 3 is 2/4 plus 1/4. So do they have the same denominator? Yes. So you just add straight across. The 4 always stays the same. Once you have your common denominator, you do not change it. 2 plus 1 is 3, so you get 3/4. Is this even? No. Cannot be divided by 2. It is a 3, however, and 4 is an even number. The only thing that goes into 4 is 4 and 2. So 4 times 1 or 2 times 2, just like we said up here. I always see, is it odd or even? If it's even, definitely 2 goes into it. If it's odd, it's either going to be divisible by 3 or a multiple of 3 or 5 or a multiple of 5. And in order to be divisible by 5, it has to end in a 5 or 0. So it would have to be anything like 15, 20, 30, 45. Those are all divisible by 5. Number 4 is 2/3 plus 1/6. Uh-oh, they don't have a common denominator, so we need to find it. There's a couple ways to find the common denominator. One way is to multiply 3 times 6, and then you know that they both go into that number, which is 18. Or you can look at it and say, does 3 go into 6? Well, in this case, 3 does go into 6. It goes into 6 2 times. So if you use 6 as your common denominator, you do not change this fraction. If this is your common denominator, the way that you got that denominator is you multiplied 6 by 1. And so you would do the same thing to the top of the fraction, which is the same as multiplying it by 1. So you do not change this fraction. you do have to change this fraction to get this number. So what times 3 equals 6? Or you can say 6 divided by 3. So the answer is 2. So you have to multiply both sides of the fraction by 2. Whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. So now you have 2 times 2 over 2 times 3. So we're going to slide down here. The 2 times 2 is this, 2 times 3 is the 6, and 2 times 2 is 4. Do you see how these are the same fraction? This is just not reduced. So all you're doing is you're taking the lowest reduced fraction, or the lowest possible number, and you're increasing it. It's still the same number. Then you're going to add it to 1/6. And you're just going to go straight across, and you get 5 over 6. Is 5 odd or even? It's odd. Is it divisible by 3? No. Is it divisible by 5? Yes. Is 6 divisible by 5? Doesn't end in a 0, and it doesn't end in a 5, so no. So your final answer is 5, 6. Sorry if this box around this confused anybody. Now we're going to do the same one, but we're going to do it the other way. If I can remember which fraction, 2/3 plus 1/6. So the other way that I like to find the common denominator is to multiply this number and this number. So we're going to get 3 times 6 is 18. Now we know 18 is the common denominator because since we multiplied it, they both go into 18. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 2/3 and 1/6. And then we have to say, what did we do to get the bottom number to be, what do we have to do to make the bottom number 18? 3 times 6, anything you do to the bottom of the fraction, you have to do to the top. Parentheses is the same as multiplication. Just so you know why I did that. I actually meant to put the times, but I forgot. And then we said 6 times 3. So we're going to multiply the bottom by 3. We have to do the same thing to the top that we do to the bottom. The reason for that is what? 3 over 3 is 1. So multiplying the top and the bottom by the same number is the same as multiplying it by 1. We're not changing the value. We're just making it a bigger fraction of the same thing. So 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 6 is 18. 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times 3 is 18. Now, this is our common denominator. This does not change anymore. When we add across, the common denominator stays the same. So 12 plus 3 is 15. Now, we used a bigger number than on the other page, so we have to reduce this. One way to know if it's divisible by 3 is to add the numbers, and I did skip a step. The top number was odd, so I immediately moved on. I always check 2 numbers that I recognize first, and 2 would have been obviously an easier choice, but 2 cannot go into 15 evenly. So a way to know if it goes into 3 is if you can add 1 and 6, 1 plus 5 and get 6, and divide 6 by 3, then this top number is divisible by 3. If you can add these two numbers, and it's 1 plus 8 is 9, and 9 is divisible by 3, the whole fraction can divide by 3. So we're going to do divide by 3, divide by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 18 divided by 3 is 6. And that's the same as we got on this one. So 5, 6, and focus, 5, 6. Okay, the next one is number 5. And it's 1/2 plus 1/3. So, there's a couple ways to find that common denominator. Does 2 divide into 3? No. What's 2 times 3? Well, 2 times 3 is 6. So we're multiplying 2 times 3, and that's the number that these both have in common. So 2 times 3, 6, 6. There's your common denominator. So you're going to do the same thing to the bottom and the top of the fraction, exactly the same. So to get 6, you multiply 2 by 3, and you have to multiply the top by 3. To get 6 here, you multiply by 2, and you multiply the top by 2. So 3 times 1 is 3, and 2 times 1 is 2. Now, you're just going to add straight across. Your denominator stays the same, it does not change, and you add 5 plus 3, and you get 5. And we know from the previous answer that does not reduce. Now, I put boxes around my answers because I have missed questions for not writing them legibly and or the instructor being able to find out where my answer is. So, anytime you see me do an equation, I will put a box around it. I also like to use 2 colors to show my steps. So like you can see here, there's my fraction, and this is what I did. This is what I implemented to hit the goal of this. Just kidding. Clearly, I have to entertain myself. 15 16ths, apparently. It's time for me to sleep. Okay? The denominator is the same. So we're just going to go straight across. The 16 does not change, and we take 15 and we subtract 5 and we get 10. So, is it odd or even? It's even. What number can we definitely divide it by? 2. So we're going to divide by 2, and we're going to get 10 divided by 2 is 5, 16 divided by 2 is 8. Can this number be divided by 2? No, it's odd. Can it be divided by 3? No. 5 plus 0 is 5. It's not divisible by 3. And can it be divided by 5? No, the 8 is not a 5 or a 0. So this is the lowest common fraction. You can also look at it like 5 times 1 equals 5, or 8 times 1 is 8, also 2 times 4. And you can say, geez, these don't have anything in common except for 1, and 1's not going to reduce this anymore, so that's the lowest. Okay, 7 is 3/7 minus 2/7. So here's your common denominator. It is the same. So you're just going to subtract straight across. 7 is your common denominator, and you're going to subtract 3 minus 2 is 1. We know that can't be reduced because 1 is on top. And let's see. Oh, number 8, I'm going to need one. I like to write big too. Okay, we said 8. So we have 3/5 minus 2/15. So, how do we find our common denominator? We can either multiply these two, which would be a really big number, or we can look at this and say, does 5 go into 15? Heck yeah, 5 goes into 15, so that's like super great because I don't have to do anything to this side of the fraction. 15 is the common denominator, so I don't have to multiply 15 times anything to change it, so that stays. Now, to 5, I have to multiply something to get 15. So you can say 15 divided by 5 is 3, and you can multiply it by 3. Anything you do to the bottom of the equation, you do to the top. So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 5 is 15. So now you're going to subtract 9 minus 2, 7. 15 is the common denominator, so it just stays. So now we have 7/15. 7 again is the lowest number. Now, if this was 7 and this was 21, we would do some reducing, but 7 and 15, that's the best we can do. So number 9 can't see my book. Sorry about my camera. 11/15 over 7/10. So this one's going to be a little bit different because we're not going to multiply 15 times 10 because that'll give us 150, and that will just suck in reducing. We can't divide 10 into 15 or 15 into 10. So what we can do is, if you don't look at this and see 30 as the common denominator, you can go through the steps of 2 times 10, 3 times 10, and then you can do 15 times 2 equals 30, and then you can say, oh look, 30 is our common denominator. So if you do it this way, it actually shows you what to multiply the bottom numbers by, because it's not the one that you already, it's not the denominator, and you used the denominator in here. So 15 and 11, we're going to do the same thing to the bottom and the top of the equation. So to get this to equal 30, we had to multiply it by 2. So if we multiply the bottom of the fraction by 2, we have to multiply the top by 2. And we can just write that down. 2 times 11 is 22. 2 times 15 is 30. Feel free to plug it into your calculator. If this isn't something that you see right away, if it is something that you just see, great. If it's not, just plug it in. How do we get 10 to equal 30? Well, we multiply that by 3. So we do the same thing to the top of the equation that we do to the bottom of the equation, and we get 3 times 7 is 21, and 3 times 10 is 30. Now we're going to subtract. 22 minus 21 is 1, and 30 stays the same. The denominator does not change. Okay, number 10 is 8 ninths minus 5 12. Okay, so how do we find the common denominator? Well, we can multiply these two, that's for sure. I don't even know what 9 times 12 is. I know 9 times 10 is 90, and then if we added 9 again to make it 9 times 11, that's 99. And if we have to do it again, it's what, 108? That's a lot of work. I don't like that. So we are going to say 9 times what gives me a common number. So we're just going to write these by each other. We're going to do, we know it's not 9 times 1, so we're going to do 9 times 2. Well, that's 18. That's not equal with 12. We're going to do 9 times 3. That's 27. 12 doesn't go into 27. 9 times 4 is 36. That's as far as I want to go. I'm kind of lazy with math, so let's see what 12 can do. 12 times 1, oops, that was kind of silly. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3, 36. So, oh gee, look, they both go into 36. Happy dance. So 36 is our common denominator. Yay! And if you're wondering, 9 times what equals 36? There's your answer. So you're going to multiply both sides of the fraction by 4. So 9 times 4 is 36. We have that. 4 times 8, 32. We have that. Then we're going to say 12 times what is 36? Bam! There it is. 12 times 3. So we do times 3, and we get 15. Now we're going to subtract. Common denominator stays the same, which is 36. And we're going to take away 15, which is what? Can I do this in my head? 12, so what are we going to say that is? 16, 15, 16, 17. Okay. Does 17 go into 36? No. So let's see. Does 17 go into 36? Well, we can find out. 17 times 1, 17. 17 times 2, 34. Okay, nope. Is it divisible by 2? No. That one is, but the top one's not, so it's irrelevant. 1 plus 7 is 8, so it's not divisible by 3. And I'm seriously going to check this answer because I don't remember it being so weird. So let's see. We're going to go to self-test. Which one is this? 4. And we are on number 10. 1736. All right. So we're going to put a box around it because we have all of this confusing information over here. And there's no way, unless you circle it, box it, star it, make it super dramatic. You know, hey, instructor, look at that number. So that's it for adding and subtracting fractions. The key to it is practice. So I hope this helps. You guys will have to give me feedback on if it does or if it doesn't. And we'll see how it works.